I didn't even know Uncle Ray had a house out in Kentucky. The letter came on thick, yellowed paper, folded neat like a war draft notice. It arrived with a key and a short message from the lawyer. Mr. Raymond Walker has passed. You are his sole heir. The property at Cedar Hill Farm is now yours. I'd only met him once when I was a kid. Tall, leathery man with eyes that didn't blink often enough. My mom used to call him a troubled soul, and that was the end of that. No family visits, no photos on the walls, just this sudden inheritance and the strange pull to go see it. The farmhouse sat on a gravel road an hour outside of Lexington. It looked like something pulled straight out of a ghost story. Chipped white paint, sagging porch, and a wind chime made of rusted spoons hanging limp by the door. The field behind the house was swallowed up by cedar trees that pressed right up to the edge of the backyard, like they were waiting for something. Still, the house was structurally sound. No signs of squatters. Water still ran, electricity worked once I flipped the breaker. I told myself I'd spend a few weeks fixing it up, see what I wanted to do with it. I'd needed a break from the city anyway. Burnout, the therapist had called it. But there was something wrong with the silence here. At first I thought it was just the quiet of the countryside. No cars, no sirens, no neighbors yelling through thin apartment walls. But the longer I stayed, the more I realized this silence wasn't natural. It was heavy. It listened. At night, it pressed against the windows like fog made of breath. And then there was the basement. The house had one, of course. Old farmhouses always do. But the door was padlocked from the outside, with a chain so rusted I was afraid it would snap if I touched it too hard. I found the key in a drawer in the kitchen. Small, black, and cold as ice even in the heat. I didn't open it the first night. The second night, I heard the knocking. It came from below, muffled and deliberate, like someone was tapping a thick pipe with their knuckles. Knock, knock. Knock. It stopped when I stood near the door. I didn't sleep. I tried to tell myself it was just the old plumbing, some animal under the house, maybe raccoons. But that rhythm, knock, 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 it felt too intentional. The third night, it happened again. Same time, 2:13 a.m. The tapping, then silence, then something heavier, a dragging sound, like a sack being pulled over cement. And then, faint but real, I heard breathing. Not mine. Something low and rasping just beneath the floorboards. I opened the basement door the next morning. The padlock came off with a groan, and the door creaked open to reveal steep wooden steps, slick with dust and something darker near the bottom. It wasn't blood, I told myself. Probably oil. Or old paint. I didn't go down. I left the door open, hoping daylight would show me there was nothing to be afraid of. But the light seemed to stop halfway down. Like the darkness had weight to it. Like it was choosing not to let the sun in. That day, I started hearing things in the house. Soft footsteps in the hallway when I was in bed. A creaking chair in the living room when no one was there. I found one of the kitchen chairs moved 6 inches to the left. The bathroom mirror fogged up, and when I wiped it, there were fingerprints on the glass that didn't match mine. That night, I dreamed of someone whispering my name from under the floor. And when I woke up, the basement door was open again. I know I closed it. I locked it. I even stacked a chair in front of it. But it stood wide open in the dark, and from the bottom of the stairs, I saw a hand slip back into the shadows. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in the kitchen with every light on, a mug of coffee clutched in both hands, listening. The silence had changed. It was no longer just watching. It was aware of me now. Like I'd broken some unspoken rule by opening the basement door. I called the lawyer the next day. I asked him about Uncle Ray. If he'd been sick, if there had been any issues. The man paused, then said, Mr. Walker was reclusive, kept to himself. The town considered him a bit of an oddity. Harmless, though. Why do you ask? I didn't tell him about the hand. I didn't tell him about the knocking. Instead, I started digging. There were boxes in the attic, buried under dusty sheets and spider webs. Most of it was junk. Old tax forms, broken radios, moldy books. But one crate was different. Locked, heavy, with initials burned into the lid. RW. I pried it open with a crowbar. Inside were journals. Dozens of them, dated from the early 80s up until 2 years ago. And the deeper I read, the colder I felt. The first entries were normal enough. Ray had bought the farm cheap in 1983. He wrote about the land, fixing up the place, loneliness. But around 1985, things shifted. His writing turned frantic, paranoid. It speaks again, always at night, beneath the floor, wants something from me. Covered the vent with concrete, still hears me. I don't sleep anymore. It mimics her voice now. Her voice. After all these years. Her voice? I flipped back, looking for clues. There was mention of a woman, Eleanor. A sister? A wife? He never said clearly. Only that she was taken in 1979. Swallowed by the house. I didn't know what that meant. Then I found the sketch. Folded between 2 pages was a piece of yellowed paper. On it, a hand-drawn diagram of the basement. But it didn't match what I remembered. There was something extra. A second door, drawn at the far end of the basement wall. Ray had scrawled above it, "Do not open, no matter what voice you hear." That night, I sealed the basement shut again. Hammered the door closed, nailed boards across it, even dragged the fridge in front for good measure. I didn't care if it looked crazy. I wasn't going back down there, but I made a mistake. I left the journal out on the table. At exactly 2:13 a.m., I woke up to the sound of pages flipping. Not quickly, slow, deliberate, like someone was reading it. I crept down the hallway. The kitchen lights were off, though I'd left them on. And from the dark, I heard a whisper, "She's still down there." I froze. The voice was quiet, feminine, almost kind. Not threatening, not in tone anyway. But the sound came from under the floor. I backed away slowly, not daring to breathe. The house was so still, so quiet. Then a single knock echoed from beneath the floorboards right under my feet. Knock, knock, knock. I ran back to my room and didn't come out until the sun was up. The next day I drove into town. I needed answers. Anyone who had known Ray. Anyone who could tell me what the hell was happening. The only person who didn't stare at me like I was crazy was the librarian. An older woman named Margaret, with a thin braid and cataract-clouded eyes. When I mentioned Ray Walker, her expression darkened. "You're his nephew? I thought he had no one left." I asked her what happened to him, what the town thought of him. She paused, then said, "They called him the Watcher, said he was keeping something in, that he was the only thing standing between it and the rest of us." I asked what it was. Margaret just shook her head. "That land was cursed long before Ray got it. You ever hear of the Craymore family?" I hadn't. She told me they were the original owners of the land back in the late 1800s. All of them disappeared in one night. No blood, no signs of struggle. Just gone. And their house, the one Ray later moved into, sat untouched for years, until he showed up. People said he was obsessed with the ground, always pouring salt, mumbling at the dirt, digging little trenches like he was trying to keep something from getting out. I left the library with a knot in my stomach and a list of graves. Margaret had told me the Craymores had a family plot behind the house, though no one knew who maintained it. When I got back, I went straight to the edge of the tree line, and I found them. 7 headstones, half sunken and overgrown. One of them, small and cracked, read simply, Eleanor Craymore, 1871 to 1879. A child. That night, I heard her crying. Soft, pitiful sobs echoing up through the floorboards of my bedroom. I didn't move. I couldn't. My limbs were locked with something deeper than fear, dread, ancient and primal. I just listened as the weeping slowly turned to laughter. Then the whisper came again. Come down. I'm cold. The fridge I dragged in front of the basement door scraped loudly against the floor. And then, I swear to you, I heard the sound of small bare feet running up. I didn't sleep after that night. The footprints, small, wet, barefoot, led from the basement to my bedroom. I sat until sunrise, gripping a flashlight, too afraid to move. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I pulled the boards off the basement door, took salt, a crowbar, Ray's old flashlight, and a Bible I found wrapped in plastic. The air down there was thick and cold, heavier with every step. The basement looked the same, but now I heard it. Not just breathing, but whispers, something murmuring from behind the far wall. I remembered the diagram in Ray's journal and found the hidden seam. The secret door creaked open, revealing a narrow dirt tunnel. I followed it. Roots curled from the walls like claws. The flashlight flickered as I stepped into a round chamber carved deep underground. In the center, a stone well covered in strange, clawed symbols. That's when I heard her. Not behind me. In front of me. She stepped from the shadows, a girl in a white dress, barefoot, her hair matted with soil. But her eyes were too wide, too still. Uncle Ray kept me company, she whispered. Now it's your turn. Her voice cracked, childlike, but layered with something older. She moved toward me. I threw salt. It sizzled against her skin, and she screamed, the illusion flickering. Her face split, her limbs too long, bending wrong. Not a girl, not anymore. I ran. Up the tunnel, up the stairs. I slammed the door shut and poured the rest of the salt across it, breathing hard as I heard her voice behind the wood. You opened the door, you let me in. I left that night. But I still wake up at 2:13 a.m. Still hear the knocks under the floor. Knock, knock. Knock. And some nights, she laughs outside my window.